What's up, guys? How are you guys doing today?
Good. How you doing, Joe?
Right.
I'm doing wonderful. Just watched a show yesterday, the episodes that I have access to. And Omar, I guess take me to the beginning of this journey. Like, how did this show come together?
Man, I got a script probably last Halloween. It's really weird because I was living in Atlanta and I was coming to LA for the Halloween premiere for my movie Halloween. Halloween Ends, and I got this script. I read it. I said, "Oh, this is really good." So I put myself on audition for it, and I saw Sebastian was in it, and I was like, "I'm a big fan of his. We share a couple of mutual friends." And so when I called around and they said they wanted me to come in the chemistry test, I was like, perfect. Came in, chemistry test with Sebastian, and man, we were knocking it out of the park, man. It felt like we were like a doubles tennis team, just throwing it back and forth with the jokes, and it felt really good, and it just felt like we were a team. So that was my journey on it.
Sebastian, I'm sure you go into this with a lot of confidence, knowing, Chuck and Nick and the kind of their track record. Tell me about what it was like working with these creators.
Yeah, so I went in, I met Chuck, and I pitched him an idea about myself in a TV scenario, basically around my life right now. And he came back and said, I have another idea that we've been kind of wanting to do, centered around a bookie in Los Angeles. Wondering if you would be interested in doing that. I said, it sounds better than my idea. So yeah, I was gun ho. We met Omar at the screen test or the chemistry read, and yeah, he was the guy. He walked in and he just had a swagger about him that was like, all right, this is Omar. This is this is Ray. This is the guy. And we sat there, played around. He left. I told him this is the guy. He came back again. We played around again, and it was off to the races. And being around Nick and Chuck, who's got north of 1,000 episodes of TV under his belt, this guy knows what he's doing. So it's not like we're in the midst of someone who's new and doesn't really know what's going on. He's makes subtle suggestions to enhance the scene, and his instincts are so good. And it's really easy to be around someone like that on set because you feel like you're being taken care of as an actor.
Mm-hmm. Omar, tell me about this like first week of filming. Tell me about like kind of finding that rhythm and kind of still figuring out like what the pacing of the show is going to be.
So I'll tell you about the first day. The first setup was me and Sebastian. It's the opening of the show. It was Sebastian and I in the G-Wagon smelling the shitty money. And just the way that we were just going back and forth. So, just so easily. I said, oh, this is what the show is going to be. It's just going to be me and him. And then from that moment on, every day that we had a free moment, what we would do is read the scenes for the next day. While we already had, the scenes for today already in our mind, we read scenes for the next day. So any free moment that we had, lunch or anytime we're traveling, from one set to another, we would just be running those lines. And so for that next day, it would be so fresh in our minds. We do the same thing the next day and the next day. So we got our rhythm from day one on how we would be running, how we would, run the show. Because most of the scenes, 80% of the scenes are he and I, right? So that's just how we did it. And we were so glad when other people were like, okay, cool, yeah, we can do the same thing. We can run scenes all day. And it's like Sebastian said, a lot of actors do not like to run lines. I like to run lines ad nauseum. You can ask my wife, she gets tired of it. I'm like, yo, can you run the scene with me? She's a director. She's like, again, I said, I got to hammer it in my head. I'm not 20 years old anymore. I can read something one time and memorize it. I have to have it, nailed in there. But yeah, man, me and Sebastian work the exact same way, which is why, our chemistry looks like that, because we have the same type of work ethic.
Sebastian, tell us about like, when you're kind of shooting, what if it's working, and apparently from the end product you can see now like it works, but like say compared to stand-up comedy, you're in front on a stage, you get immediate laughs, but on a show like this, how do you know it is working?
How I knew it was working was I always had an ear to where Chuck and Nick were at. And I don't know if they did this intentionally or what, but they would laugh. I mean, you wouldn't hear them on the mic, but they would laugh. So it's almost like you were performing for two guys. And if you heard them laughing, regardless if it was fake or not, at least you went into the next scene going, all right, we're doing something funny here. But knowing Chuck, I don't think this guy's giving out fake laughs. If he thinks it's funny, he's laughing. And that was, for me, what I tuned into. That was my own little personal audience for me. And it was nice to have, because sometimes when you're doing a TV or film that's a comedy, you don't get that. And I think it really helped me as a comedian, because I need the laughs to validate what I'm doing is funny. So kudos to them for for doing that, regardless if it was premeditated or organic.
Omar, most people might not think of you as like necessarily a comedy actor. But obviously in the show it works. Was there anything that stretched you a little bit, or when you were kind of maybe a certain day was uncomfortable and kind of figuring out that part of it?
It's just great to work with Sebastian, because he is a comedian, right? And the same way that he's talking about how Chuck and Nick are, if I can make Sebastian laugh or break a little bit, I say, well, I'm doing something right. I know how to do this Shakespeare stuff, but I think I can do this too, because Sebastian makes you feel good. He's like, man, oh God, oh my, that was hilarious. And he's a comedy god. So if he's saying it's funny, then I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing something right. Cool, good. And all I try to do is not to be over the top or too funny, because it's in the dialogue. Chuck and Nick write so well, and their rhythm on comedy is so good that if you just say the lines properly and you say it the right way, then that's all that matters, right? And Sebastian delivers, just tremendously. I'm just going to sit back and play my character, because my character is funny and he's in funny situations. But he let Sebastian be the, you let Danny be the one who with the real comedy on his shoulders. So that's what I did.
Sebastian, the journey of kind of your career over the last couple of decades is really inspiring. Of just it doesn't seem like you thought you're like whatever 1998 or whenever you moved to LA to now that you would get here. But tell me about yourself in the early days. If you watch a show, what would your reaction, young Sebastian, be to the show?
Oh, I mean, I would be a fan of this show if I was in it or not. I just think the world is so interesting to explore, the world of betting and sports gambling and the people associated with it. I mean, you could be a housewife gambling, you could be a CEO, you could be a trust fund, you could be, a kid in college. I remember in school we had some bookies that would come around the fraternity house and what have you. So I never personally indulged in the world of gambling in that way, but I love the material. I love where this show can go. Love the fact that it's in Los Angeles and you get to see a lot of different places. Even myself, even living here for 20 some odd years, this show took me to some places that I've never seen in LA. So I like it. We have much more to explore in this show, and hopefully we can continue to do it.
Love it. Omar, take me back to kind of the beginning of your acting career. If you were, when you're in those early auditions, maybe in a break, you kind of see you in the show, or you see the show, what would you have thought about the show when you were a young actor?
Now, like 23 years ago, 25 years ago when I first started, if I was seeing that I was going to be on a show about bookies, man, that would be crazy, because I was a gambler. And I still am. So I'd be like, I would have a whole lot of life experience on that. But yeah, and especially if it's a comedy, because what's crazy is I've done so much drama. I started out doing comedy. I started out doing all the Todd Phillips movies, right? Started out doing Road Trip and School for Scoundrels and Starsky and Hutch. Those were my first films that I ever did. Then I transitioned into the drama world. So I would be extremely ecstatic that I would be doing a big comedy series on Max with probably the biggest comedian in the world. And I'm standing right there beside him. It will be a dream come true. That's how I would feel about it.
Mm-hmm. Last question, just for both of you. Why do people need to watch the show?
You need to watch it, man, because it's like it's Sebastian Maniscalco and Chuck Lorre. These are like Chuck Lorre is the godfather of comedy on television, and it's him being able to do a show with no holds barred, no censors, just being able to fly whatever he can, and you can see the biggest comedian in the world embody a character that you want to watch him play, and you get to watch him and his best friend, play around for a good, 8 episodes and see exactly where they how they move around into this underworld.
Love it. Sebastian, why do people need to tune in for this show?
In a world where you have social media that reigns supreme and people have attention spans of 10 to 15 seconds and are looking to laugh within that small time frame, I think this show kind of lends itself to the fact that people could sit down and digest this in 22 minutes, and there's a lot happening in those 22 minutes where we're going here, we're going there, someone's getting shot, someone's getting stabbed, there's a lot going on, and it's digestible comedy, it's quick, it's clever. You get to see a great cast, a collaboration of some really, really great talent coming together on this show. And in today's day and age where gambling is now infused in NFL games, basketball games, shit, you can make a bet at one of the venue that you're at watching the game now. It's so like accessible. That and pot, gambling and pot 10 years ago, people like, hey, forget it. Now all of a sudden you got your grandmother on FanDuel.
Right.
So I think it's topical, it's current, and it's fresh, and I think it's got so much more breathing room.
Sure.
Well, I'll encourage my grandma to watch it, and I'll remind her not to lose too much money of her retirement. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you both.
Thank you.
Got it. Thank you.